Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and then we're now going to look at our second topic. And Nigeria's economy has really grown by 5.1% in the second quarter of 2021. A figure released by the National Bureau of Statistics on Thursday indicates that the growth of the economy surpasses the earlier projection.
All right. Now we have with us in the studios to discuss this latest development, Ajuri Ngelale, he is Senior Special Assistant to the President. And also here with us is Ogbonna Okuku, is an investment and financial analyst. Gentlemen, pleasure to have you with us on the program. Beginning with Ajuri, how heartwarming is the latest number released by the National Bureau of Statistics with regard to the growth of the economy in the second quarter?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kingsley. You know, we're very, of course, proud of the results. And what we're more proud of, though, is not so much the figure, so much as it's the clear analysis of the numbers shows that that most of this growth predominantly came from the non-oil sector, which really means for us that all of the very active efforts that this administration under President Muhammadu Buhari has been making in diversifying the economy away from purely oil and gas into more of the labor-intensive sectors, into the real sector, the investments we've made in the real sector, etc., that they're now yielding fruit. We have now seen, based on the figures, that we recorded nearly 10%, nearly double-digit growth in the growth of the services sector, which we know to be labor-intensive, meaning that we're really beginning to see the evolution and the establishment of a truly inclusive economy, where some of these labor-intensive sectors that are actually creating jobs are those that are contributing to the nation's GDP growth. And that's really encouraging. So we had the highest rate of growth in the services sector since 2010, which is quite remarkable, over a decade. And then, of course, we'd seen the growth of the contribution of the non-oil sector to the GDP figure at the highest rate since third quarter of 2014. So that really just goes to show that the investments we've been making through, for example, the 2.3 trillion naira economic sustainability plan, in which we've been able to get 774,000 young people constructing rural roads across the country. Approximately 3,600 kilometers of road are undergoing reconstruction in collaboration with Pharma. That's really having an effect. And then, of course, the interventions we've made in micro and small and medium scale enterprises across all states of the Federation through the Survival Fund, saving the nation over 1.3 million jobs that would have been lost due to the pandemic, that were not lost because of the intervention of this administration. So if you look at that and you combine that with all of the construction taking place on major projects around the country, the second Niger Bridge in the southeast is going to be completed next year. In the southwest, of course, we've concluded the Lagos-Ibadan high-speed rail line. We'll be completing the Lagos-Shagamu-Ibadan expressway next year. Boni-Bodo Road in the south-south, linking NLNG on Boni Island to the mainland for the first time in history. In the south-south, and then, of course, in the north, the Abuja Kaduna-Kano expressway, in addition to the AKK pipeline and the NLNG train 7, $12 billion, tens of thousands of jobs there as well. You look at all of that together and you realize the width and breadth of investment this administration has made to really create an inclusive economy where jobs are actually created, not based on merely oil and gas income.
Okay, thank you so much, Ngelale. Ogbonna Okuku, let's hear your views about this growth. This is not the first time Nigeria is recording this, of course, in real terms. And what Ngelale says is all about, the projects that have been there for long, 1, 2, 3 years, or even more. And the investment have been there too for long. And are we saying that it's now that the fruits are coming out, or have we done anything differently recently?
No, I want to take you from this point of view. When you look at the whole ecosystem when it comes to economic development and growth. Now, investment, the input that you make as a government or as leaders, would definitely reflect on the other side. I mean, and then when we look at then the economy shutting down last year, by second quarter last year, everything had shut down due to the pandemic. Now, I think you also give people, time to reflect, to think about, better ways to do things, to bring in efficiency. So that's why, as soon as, the economy opened up, a lot of people now began to see better ways to do things, knowing that they can't depend on foreign goods anymore. It's better for us to begin to grow our own economy, in line with what this present administration have been, advocating. Let's grow our own food. You can imagine, some of us have been, said it then. You can imagine if countries could not, those who we used to depend on, to import rice, shut their borders and all of that, and then we could not get food. Can you imagine what would have happened to this country? So with that alone, I think a lot of investors, those who play in the economy, began to see that it is better for us to begin to become self-sufficient, begin to grow our own economy, because you can't depend on the world forever. Yes, there's that global value chain when it comes to doing business, but your contribution also has to play a role, because that affects, your own economy, because the value that you bring into, or you bring on the table, actually speaks to your own pocket, or speaks to your own GDP too. So that is exactly what has happened. And then, just like Ajuli mentioned, a lot of interventions, from the central bank, from the fiscal point also, has also contributed to this results that we are seeing today.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. In addition to the growth that has been recorded in the second quarter, there is a line there from the NBS report stating that agriculture and ICT were laggards in terms of subsectoral growth. And some persons have stated also that the slowdown in agriculture is something that should be of concern going forward. What are your thoughts on this? I'm asking this question against the background of what we saw when we were in recession from 2016 for about 18 months. Agriculture and solid minerals were the primary drivers of the economy at that time. But here we are, we're having this first leap of about 5-point-something% growth in a quarter, and agriculture is missing, ICT is missing.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Kingsley. I think this can be attributed to multiple factors. Certainly our investments in agriculture have not slowed down in any way. If in fact, they've actually increased. I think one of the challenges we have had, however, is, and my friend Wana made reference to, the global value chain and what had happened. I mean, we're coming from a place where you had a once-in-a-century global pandemic, global embargoes on multiple subsector goods, production shutdowns, etc. You combine that with, of course, what we all know is a very serious security situation in the Northwest and the North Central, which this administration has been working very hard to curtail. Particularly when you compare what it was going on in the Northwest and North Central as it relates to violence and conflict in 2018 to what it is now. You know that a lot of progress has been made, but all is not yet uhuru. There's still a lot of work yet to be done. But I think when you look at the fact that agriculture, I think it grew at just a little bit over 1%. It certainly did not, it certainly did not recede. It did grow. But if it would have grown to the extent that it had grown in previous quarters, we wouldn't be talking about 5% GDP growth this morning, which is already very good under the circumstance. We would have talked about something excellent, probably closer to double digits. And so it is a concern, but we are not overly alarmed because we understand the dynamics of where we're coming from and because we know most of the conditions that have led to kind of a lagging growth in that subsector that we're dealing frontally with those. And the last point I'll just make very quickly on this is one of the remarkable elements of the report is that 42 out of 46 subsectoral economic activities improved from this quarter to the second quarter 2020. But even more importantly is that you had over 30 out of the 46 improve quarter on quarter, meaning from the first quarter to the second quarter, meaning that we're seeing a progressive uptick in all of in most of the subsectors. And that gives us a lot of confidence that we're moving in the right direction, not just in one area, but in most of the areas. And in the areas where we're not, we're paying keen attention to make sure that we double down on what we're doing so that we don't have a continuous lag in agriculture.
What would you say, Mr. Buna, about the issues of the sectors that have not been performing or that have not performed up to standard or minimally? One would say, like the agriculture, we just recorded 1%, and some other areas, ICT, which were not really the real, sectors that really produce what we're chatting or looking at as a heartwarming news today. How do we get them upscaled? And then how do we make the economy move on looking forward?
Now, see, for investor sentiment, there's a lot of things you need to also put into consideration here, because just like you mentioned earlier, solid minerals, these are heavy metals that you can't move on roads. So that is why the effort towards getting our railways to start working is actually is a good step in the right direction, because unless you have that, you see, these are things that will propel other sectors that that will make other sectors to start working. If you have a good infrastructure, road infrastructure, rail, and then your seaways and then your inland waterways are all functioning well. So these are things that require a lot of huge investment, which the government also is trying to do a whole lot to to expand the economy, because those participation will actually require, for you to draw them into that ecosystem, there has to be efficiency in the system. So, every work that is being done will still, at the end of the day, affect every sector of the economy. Whether you like it or not, education, when it comes to research and development, will help the ICT sector. So by the time there's a lot of investment in education and higher education in the ICT sector, you will see that, that innovation will begin to, will water the innovative energy of our young people to begin to, contribute more into the ICT sector, into the technology sector. Just like if, but at least you can see that some of our young people have been able to take the bull by the horn. But these are things we need to expand more on. I used to say that we never had an economy until we began to look critically at the infrastructure of this our country. Because unless you have the infrastructure work, unless you begin to have the efficiency work, unless you begin to have the education work, all these things are all somehow attached to each other for you to have a robust economy. So that is why you see some of these sectors that have not really played, a significant role in our economy. They will not until we have all those other areas all sorted out, so that we'll all begin to lock up the chains, and then you will see a boom in the economy at the end of the day.
Thank you very much. I want to come back to Ajuri. What, in your opinion, would be some of the policy implications of what we have seen as the primary drivers of the growth in the second quarter? It's been reported that the opening up of the economy and the growth in the services sector, for instance, these are things that have occurred because we are, as it were, getting out of the lockdown mode of 2020. But there is still a warning out there that the pandemic is not fully over. And, the challenge of maintaining or balancing the tension between life and livelihoods remains. Yeah. But in most of our urban areas, you find persons who are almost recklessly careless about even undertaking the basic protocols, non-pharmaceutical protocols, to prevent further spread of the pandemic. We also continue to have vaccine hesitancy. If we had a lockdown, we would, of course, be having these numbers. How does government intend to balance this? Because one, yes, if you project to maybe quarter 3 and quarter 4, on this trajectory, things are likely to get better. But if the greater population then continues to flout the non-pharmaceutical protocols, continue to dodge vaccination, where might this take us?
Thank you very much. Yes, that tightrope that governments around the world are really having to walk now. Certainly the Nigerian government has to walk it. And I believe we have been, to our credit, walking it fairly effectively. When you look at the results around the case numbers, fatalities, vaccination figures have been very encouraging. And the fact that we have been able to not just see to the reopening of the economy, but really, if you look at, for example, aviation, transportation, some of the very major drivers around the figures we've seen most recently, you would know that that's very indicative of the fact that you have almost full return to normalcy in many of those sectors. And I think there's no reason for that not to continue, even with the Delta variant. We've been very fortunate. And I think part of it is the fact that we have some of the most stringent aviation-based protocols found anywhere in the world around how we're handling incoming passengers and the like. But that's just one out of so many. Widespread availability of the vaccines, and also making sure that our people, as much as possible, are abiding by the protocols. You rightly mentioned that there are some areas where we've seen some kind of lackadaisical behavior in relation to, sustaining kind of living up to, adhering to the protocols. But that really has not resulted in the kind of, in the small corners where that's a problem. That has not really resulted in the kind of boom in cases or anything like that that would really worry government to the extent that we'd be looking again at any kind of close down of economic activity. So with all of that said, moving into the next few quarters, I have no doubt that given where we saw the growth, and given where we are expecting further growth, case in point would be the oil and gas sector, which diminished slightly during this last quarter. If you look at the fact that, number one, just yesterday, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari announced the NNPC's significant first announcement of a declaration of profit to the tune of 287 billion naira. That speaks to the fact that the oil and gas industry is moving in a direction of profitability. We've just passed the Petroleum Industry Act. More investment is coming. So when you look at agriculture, oil and gas, some of the weaker sectors in the report, and you know that some of the policy reforms that are now being implemented moving forward, you would now know that the future of those weak points will be very, very strong. And as a result, the GDP figures should be better and the economy will be more robust and have far greater integrity in terms of its lack of weaknesses.
Okay, thank you so very much, Ajuri Ngelale, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs. It's our pleasure this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. Bona Okuku, Investment and Financial Analyst. You've been a great asset to us this morning. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And then Nigerian music star Teniola Opata, popularly known as Tenny or Tenny, is in the FCT to thrill her fans and music lovers at the Tenny Live in Abuja show. Int's entertainment crew was part of the media encouragement.
Tenny being received at the Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport with all the flamboyance and flair her star quality now attracts. She was the bubbly Tenny Makanaki, bouncy and vibrant and giving off the vibes that a good time awaits music lovers in Abuja come 29th August 2021.
Makanaki's here, we're killing it, we're shutting it down. Come on, let's have fun.
In spite of the buzz her presence generated, the sugar mommy of Lagos, as she is popularly called, was pretty calm and cool as she responded to us. We saw pictures of you a few months ago with the vice president. What was that about?
We were discussing how we can improve the entertainment industry and make it viable for artists, and things like that. Yeah.
What did you arrive at finally?
I can't tell you.
The singer proceeded to a press conference for more questions from the media. However, it was preceded by a few stops here and there for effect.
Tenny Makanaki, very playful, very lively. I mean, wherever she is, there's no dull moment. This is the city gate, and you guys are about to see what's going to happen. We don't know, but I urge you to just stick around.
Abuja, Sugar Mommy is here, and I'm ready to give you the best show of your life. Let's go.
E-News.
And that's Good Morning Nigeria. Kingsley, you're dancing.
Yeah, all right, sure.
You better go ahead and join the crew out there.
Okay.
That's Good Morning Nigeria. Well, thank you so much for being part of it this morning. It's our pleasure. See you next week.
And that's on Monday when the program returns, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, do enjoy yourself. Have a lovely weekend. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.